Blake Crosby, are you in the room? You can come up. All right, could people start to close a couple of the doors, please, to mask out the sound here so we can get going? Thanks a lot. There's vigorous networking going on out in the foyer, which is good, but we also have great content going on here, so we're going to resume. And we've got Blake Crosby from the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, who's going to talk about the content provider side of things, how they deliver all the news in Canada and reach their audience. So without further ado.
Great, thanks. You'll have to excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold, so if I start hacking up along, I apologize in advance. My name is Blake Crosby. I've been with the CBC for 10 years, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to show you guys the other side of the coin with regards to the content providers. Like I said earlier at breakfast, we rely on the network providers to deliver news, essential information to Canadians and to Canadians abroad. So, without you guys, we wouldn't have a website. So I just want to thank you guys in advance for that. But from your point of view, there are some things that we do at CBC that improves the delivery of our content, and it's not just the network. Everyone's involved. We work as a team. We work with the network engineers. We work with the front-end developers to ensure that our site gets delivered to as many Canadians as quickly and as efficiently as possible. I just hit next. Well, no. Oh, okay, sweet. So who are we? We are Canada's public broadcaster. We're a Crown corporation, which means that the government owns us, essentially. We offer services in English, in French, and Aboriginal languages, especially up north. Our properties include Radio 1 and Radio 2, an online music service called CBC Music, as well as television. We have a 24-hour news network, as well as a documentary channel, Bold, and regular CBC television. This is just on the English side. Our French counterparts in Montreal also have a wide range of properties as well. So when I came up with the title for this talk, I needed something snazzy to get people in the room. So I said, 100 terabytes a day. I kind of shot myself in the foot when I actually crunched the numbers, because the best month so far this year was in April, and we only did 73 terabytes a day. But out of all that, the majority of the traffic is video. Video is a high bandwidth service. So it accounts for about 3/4 of the bandwidth we do to Canadians. Excuse me. Out of that, we still did 9 terabytes of data on mobile devices in April, and this was mainly due to the Stanley Cup playoffs. A lot of people like to watch the hockey games on their mobile phones. So how do we do this? Well, we use two main content delivery networks, Akamai primarily, and for the live radio we use Stream the World. Akamai's been able to give us a great reach. One of our mandates is to deliver our content to Canadians as efficiently and as cheaply as possible, and Akamai allows us to do that. We've gotten an origin offload rate of about 95%, which means that 95% of our traffic is delivered by Akamai, and that allows us to keep our costs down without having to build an extremely large origin infrastructure. So just quickly, a CDN in a nutshell. This graphic was provided by Akamai. You have the origin infrastructure, which for CBC is located in Toronto, and Akamai has roughly around 80,000 servers worldwide, which caches our content and delivers it to the end user. And this allows us to deliver the content efficiently because the majority of our traffic patterns is what I like to call newsy. So it's not predictable. It's really bursty. You don't know when a major event is going to happen. Something can happen in 20 minutes and all of a sudden our traffic increases 20-fold. But there are some situations where we can predict, specifically with long-time events like the Summer Olympics that are coming up, federal elections, hockey playoffs, that kind of things. Those things that are on a schedule we can predict and prepare for. But it's the unpredictable things that we use the CDNs for mainly. So here's an example. I don't know if the graph is showing up very well, but excuse me. Whitney Houston, she died earlier this year. And the spike of traffic essentially just speaks for itself. We're just humming along nicely and all of a sudden, wham. I think it was 22 times our normal daily traffic. And it's short-lived, so it's just like for 20 minutes or so, half an hour, everyone comes to the website, the rush, checks out what's going on, and then leaves. But for us to be able to anticipate this and to build out the origin infrastructure with these types of spikes in mind wouldn't really be cost-effective because 99% of the time it's just at idle level. So we rely on CDN, specifically Akamai, to be able to deliver this content. Here's another example. When Dick Clark died earlier this year, I guess he wasn't as popular as Whitney Houston because the spike was a lot lower. But again, same thing. We were just chugging along at our normal rate, and then all of a sudden, this was about 15 times more our regular traffic pattern. So news organizations have to deal with this on a daily basis, and it's really difficult because it's unpredictable. Another example here is streaming, an NHL playoff game. Usually what happens with longer events like this, you see little dips during intermissions. So people leave during the first and second intermission and they come back. So you have more of a wave, a sine wave pattern. And at the end of the game, everyone drops off. So these types of traffic we can predict, but the scale is so large. With streaming video, we're streaming at 3 to 5 megabits per second, and we want to be able to have the best experience possible. So having that video being served locally to the user via CDN, as opposed for them having to come all the way back to Toronto and get it, definitely improves the user experience with buffering and with load times. CBC is not the only company in Canada that uses Akamai. These are our competitors. Bell Media they have many properties, both radio and television, as well as Rogers Media. They have newspapers, television, and radio. So the point I'm trying to make here is that most media organizations in Canada do peer with a CDN, and it's important when it comes to peering with these individuals that you do peer with the CDN and not with the origin itself. And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of times where companies come to us and say, hey, I peer with you guys. Oh, just gonna hit here. I peer with you guys, but all your traffic is going over a different link, and that's because we deliver 95% of our traffic through Akamai, through CDN. So it's important that you peer with them more so than you do with us, with the origin. Now, there is still a benefit, specifically with corporate traffic. People in the office going to Google, checking their mail, that kind of stuff. You can still, if CBC does peer with Google and Microsoft, so we still send some of that traffic to them. But it's during these large events where shit hits the fan and people are like, oh my God, our link is saturated, it's not going over the link it's supposed to go. Well, that's because you probably didn't peer with the CDN. And you can avoid that scenario by doing that. We're at Torix in Toronto. There we go. And Torix has a root server. We just peer with the root server. Anybody else who's also peered with the root server will magically peer with us. And if you peer with the root server at Torix, you'll also be peering with Akamai as well, which is important. Another thing I wanted to mention was streaming. So the majority of the traffic that we do is video streaming, video and audio. But it's not over what I like to call the old school protocols, RTMP, RTSP, MMS. It's all done over HTTP now. There's a few advantages as a content producer for this. One, we get around firewalls. A lot of companies firewall streaming protocols, but if we just push that through HTTP, we get around that. Some people go so far as to doing this over HTTPS. There is that misnomer that this is more secure, but we all know that you can still rip a stream over HTTPS. And a lot of video streams now are what I like to call extremely high bit rate for the internet, 3 to 5 megabits. So it's hard to differentiate between streaming traffic and web traffic nowadays, so that can cause some problems with regards to traffic shaping and firewalling. But it's great for us because it gets around licensing issues. We don't have to license real media, for example, for RTSP, and we get more eyeballs because there's no firewalls blocking web traffic. So content producers, one of the things that we do, we spend a lot of time optimizing our HTML and images. You know, the network is fast, but it's not very fast if you have a 20 meg JPEG on the home page and everyone's trying to download it. So we always take a look at optimizing our front end. We use gzip compressions extensively when we deliver our pages, as well as we use proper caching headers, and this is very important because caching content close to the user gives them a better experience than having to go across the continent to get it. And another point I wanted to mention is about what I like to call lazy programming. A lot of people nowadays, they don't test their sites on a slower link. And so I just want to make a point of, you know, don't allow fast pipes to make you lazy and just be like, oh, this is great, it loads fast, you know, on my DSL connection. But we have to think about the people up north who have limited internet connectivity or slower internet connectivity. So we're always constantly keeping an eye on page weight. But the network admins can do some things as well. Specifically ensuring that you have a fat enough pipe to handle large events. A couple of years ago during the FIFA World Cup, we had a scenario with a particular ISP who just saturated their link. They had more eyeballs than the link could handle. And it's frustrating for us because that's lost revenue, lost ad revenue, poor experience. You know, users on this particular ISP would complain. There's nothing we could do. So it's important that you ensure that you do have a pipe big enough to handle your users. If you do use proxy caches, make sure that it supports the 203 partial content request. And this is because on-demand content nowadays is also delivered using HTTP. And it's delivered in chunks. So you can cache only a specific portion of an on-demand clip that a person has viewed. So if I want to watch a 10-minute clip and I hit play and I stop after 5 minutes, well, that 5 minutes is only going to be cached. So when user B comes along and hits play, well, they don't have to go all the way back to the origin. They can just load up the first 5 minutes of the video and from the local cache. So just double check to make sure that your cache does support this extension of the HTTP protocol, and most do anyways. Peer with CDNs. That's important. Or better yet, ask them, Akamai, Limelight, Brightcove, those guys to host their stuff in your data center. That gives you the most optimum scenario. one little bit of advice that I wanted to give you guys before I finish. The Olympic Games are coming up. It's a huge event. There's going to be lots and lots of video this year, this time around. I've been at CBC for 6 Olympic Games, and each year the bandwidth just grows exponentially. And this year's going to be no exception, especially with video. I read somewhere that YouTube is going to be handling some of the video for NBC in the United States. So I can only assume that a lot of traffic is going to be coming to and from Google. We deliver all our content using Akamai for video as well. So again, it's important that you do peer with Akamai to ensure that your users have the best video experience. You don't want to run into the situation like we did with FIFA, with running out of bandwidth. It's hard to predict what kind of bandwidth requirements you're going to need for the Olympics. I do anticipate that the video bit rates are going to be between 3 and 5 megabits. So keep that in mind you can do the basic math with the number of users that you have. Any specific questions about CBC or how we do things or anything? No news is good news?
Okay. I thought that got somebody at the mic. Okay.
West George, Time Warner Cable. I will be the resident Stuckey on this question. Akamai supports IPv6. Do you?
We do via Akamai, yes. So Akamai has this great... our origin right now is still all v4. And we can continue to use the v4 origin, and we can just tell Akamai, hey, deliver our content using v6 as well. We do have that option. It's something that we're looking into for the future. It's great for us because we don't have to roll out a v6 infrastructure right away, and it allows us to do testing. We can turn it on and off easily by a push of a button, really. So it's again, a lot of our limitations or abilities are solely based on the Akamai portfolio, because again, everything is served from them.
Right. So the question was more, when are you turning it on?
I don't know yet. It's not a priority right now at CBC, mainly because all of our eyeballs are still on v4, right? We don't see a benefit to doing v6 just yet. But as soon as that magic tipping point happens, then I'm sure we'll be switching over.